Welcome to Game Reads. I'm your host, Sean Callahan, and I'm here today with Andrew Seiple. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Sean. How's it going, man?
Great, man. And I'm really happy that you're here today, especially after your recent stint on The View. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Well-deserved, man. For Threadbare, your first book in that is called Stuff and Nonsense, correct?
That is true.
And Whoopi Goldberg picked that as one of her summer reads. Man, that must have been an honor.
It was. I grew up watching The Next Generation, Star Trek The Next Generation, and I did love Guinan. And to have one of my childhood icons, have read and enjoyed my book, that's humbling and awesome, to tell the truth.
You've got 10 books in 3 years, 3 Threadbare books. The first is, as we just talked about, Stuff and Nonsense. The second, So You Want to Be a Hero. And the last one, The Right to Arm Bears. Little pun on words there. You have 6 books in the Dire Saga: Born, Seed, Time, Wars, Sins, and Hell. And then your last book is a middle grade book called Final Frost.
About the only book I've written that doesn't have swearing in it. It's aimed for readers about 10 years of age, maybe a little younger, but it's one of those all ages things. It's about little dragons having big adventures.
I see you got a lot of stuff going on in the background there, dude. You have quite the collection of games, board games, RPG games, just games in general.
I have been collecting role-playing games and the occasional board game for the last 25, 26 years. I filled about 6 shelves worth of role-playing games, and I'm going to need to put in a 7th shelf soon. Role-playing games have been an obsession of mine for a very long time. I was trying to design role-playing games long before I ever thought of trying writing.
Beyond the RPGs and the tabletop video games, you're quite the gamer as well. In fact, I think you told me that one of your favorite games is Planescape Torment, right?
Oh, heck yes. I sunk hours and hours into that game trying to track down every dialogue choice. And if you played that game, you know just how much dialogue that one has.
Yeah, you can't beat Torment, man. That was one of the classics.
It spawned a whole bunch of tropes, some of which I see today and I smile, because they've got some good ancestry going on there.
And you also said that you were into LARPing. Were you doing some LARPing back in the day?
Back in the day when I was about 50 pounds lighter and a whole lot younger and didn't have the bones I do now. Yeah, I did a lot of LARPing. Oh, college. College was where it came together. We had a local thing called NERO, New England Role-Playing Organization, and a few chapters near us. And I'd get out there in the woods and put on weird costumes and hit people with plumbing supplies. It was great.
So is the $1 million question there, Andrew, has got to be, are you and your wife going to take your daughter out in the backyard for some LARPing?
Hell yeah. After I spent about half a year showing her everything I still remember about fencing, kendo, and various other tricks.
Did you do a lot of that stuff?
Mainly fencing. The kendo stuff is a little self-taught, a little bit of teaching from some friends who also LARPed. It's mainly the basics. A real kendo guy could put me on my butt.
So you were a big sword guy?
Mm-hmm.
The bastard sword or the ram's head
Lord, no.
Swords?
Those things are actually slow as heck. So if you want to go doppelganger style, you need some good friends to watch your back. I actually preferred your standard longsword. Back in my youth, it was all katana all the time, but I got over that phase.
Well, it's certainly not very good against certain types of armor like chainmail. I mean, you're not going to use that thin curved blade on some chainmail. Right.
The Japanese didn't usually do much metal armor, which is why the katanas could get away with being katanas. For metal armor, you want something that's basically German, that's kind of sharp and heavy.
Well, speaking of chainmail, I have to address the elephant in the room. Is that a chainmail tie you're wearing?
It totally is.
Really?
Yep.
Let's see that sucker.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see it through the camera, but it's got a faint red sheen from the underlayer.
Wow. Now, that's not like aluminum. That's the real deal, right?
It surely is.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm friends with a local vendor who works some of the same conventions I do. Her trade name is Roselink, and she does a whole line of ties. Bow ties, too, if you're looking for something smaller.
I have never seen a chainmail tie that is badass.
That's why I got it.
Speaking of badass, one of the craziest things that you've ever done is ghost hunting in an abandoned ruin.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, man.
Well, we didn't find anything, so I'll tell you. I'll skip to the chase right now. But it's this huge old tunnel out in the middle of the woods, about 20 minutes from civilization. And I'm being kind when I call it civilization in that part of the state. Just nothing there but the tunnel.
Did you guys like have the gear and everything, like the EMP detectors?
I had a tape recorder along, but didn't hear anything.
Damn it, Jim.
Sorry.
You mentioned, and I've never heard this, so it really sparked my interest, is that you said one of your favorite signature abilities, and in fact, so much so that you use it as one of your gaming names, right, is Lost Demiurge or Demiurge's Wrath?
Yeah.
What's up with that? What's up with the Demiurge?
Showing a bit of a history geek here. It actually goes back to ancient myth. Well, ancient-ish myth. This side of the AD myth, anyway. Basically, it goes back to Gnosticism. And Gnosticism was an early Christian heresy, deemed a heresy by the church, who wiped them out, so they get to call it heresy, but whatever. But the basic idea was that God hadn't created the universe. One of God's rogue angels had, thus making him kind of a Satan equivalent. And because, it wasn't God doing the job, but this rogue angel, he basically made the universe imperfectly, and hence evil existed and humans suffer, and everything was flawed.
The fallen angel syndrome.
Yeah, only, in the mythos, this is kind of hell, except not.
Earth is hell.
Yeah, there is suffering, there is evil, and yet God does nothing about it. That's how the myth goes. Now, you see why they got burned at the stake a lot.
Yeah.
But thinking about that myth, when I first heard of this, I turned it on its ear, because one of the components of the myth is that God wouldn't have used that power to create creation. God was happy with heaven and wouldn't have made earth. In which case, the fallen angel, called the Demiurge, yeah, he made a world that's full of suffering and evil, but without him, it wouldn't have existed, and humanity wouldn't be. So it just kind of resonated. The very flawed creator.
The version of the antagonist or the villain that has a good reason to do what he's doing.
It's my way of being humble and arrogant at the same time, if that makes sense. I mean, I know the games I create aren't perfect. I know the writing I do isn't perfect, but it wouldn't exist if I didn't do it. So that's how I kind of get myself to dare and shrug off the bad reviews and the occasional call-outs I get when people don't like my stuff. It's like, well, okay. I did it anyway. It's here.
Speaking of hell, one of your favorite holiday is Halloween, correct?
Sure is. That's less to do with hell and more the aesthetic. I like the fact that
you're not wishing hell on everybody on Halloween.
Oh, heavens, no.
So the $1 million question on that is, were you ever a bear for Halloween?
I don't think I ever was.
Oh, man. Did you have a bear when you were little?
I think everyone did.
Yeah.
I think everyone did.
Mine was a ratty ass Pooh Bear. And, my mother had to tell me that thing burned in a fire because it was so nasty. Getting back to Halloween and the costumes and your cosplay that you've done, your little LARPing that you did in the past, you said that one of the best costumes you ever did wear was Il Palazzo?
Il Palazzo.
Il Palazzo?
Il Palazzo.
What's that, man?
So there's this off-the-wall comedy anime called the Excel Saga.
Oh,
It's very hard to explain. It breaks the fourth wall all the time. It's it's satire on a bunch of other popular anime series. And Il Palazzo is a pretty badass looking mastermind kind of villain who sends the heroine Excel out on all sorts of evil missions to forward his organization's goals. Meanwhile, he spends most of the episodes sitting in his underground lair and like learning how to play guitar or reading Teen Beat or doing absolutely nothing.
Teen Beat.
It was a sweet costume. I had a friend of mine repurpose a football torso kind of protector, and had a headpiece, long flowing wig. It looked goofy as heck. I loved it.
It didn't include a chainmail tie, though, right?
No, I came to that upgrade.
That's
later.
special. It's another costume altogether.
Oh yeah.
You said a future tech that you would make available now. Now, this is really interesting. Cyber brains, the ghost in the shell syndrome. Why that?
All right. So the basic idea behind cyber brains is that they're augments that get implanted into your regular brain to help it process properly, to speed things up, to help boost you so you can pretty much access the internet with your brain. You can store information that you want so you can remember, like, without having to do the usual, what's your name? Yeah. Yeah. And basically, one of the reasons I do want them is because they would make all this virtual online stuff that we're reading about in this genre possible without capsules or without goggles, maybe goggles, but when you can jack your brain into a machine and pretty much let it beam the game into your mind without need for a capsule, just reroute your bodily processes so that you think you're moving your arm instead of actually moving it in the capsule or whatever, stuff like that.
Sci-fi often portends the future. A lot of times. And I've definitely seen the versions of cyber brains in a lot of sci-fi and fantasy stuff. So I can definitely see that coming around, man.
As a side benefit, it will also help with Alzheimer's and other various syndromes, which cause degradation in that manner. At least if it's implemented like they do in Ghost in the Shell and other various animes and novels that use that concept.
So tell me why you chose a bear for your MC.
There's a couple of reasons. There's one I didn't mention on the questionnaire, though, and that was that I'd just read Everyone Loves Large Chests.
That's a great story.
It's a great story, and it's sold with a monster protagonist. And I didn't want to tell that story, but it did influence what I was writing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I credit where credit's due. It's a good story. It's a very different story in a lot of ways, in pretty much every way. But yeah. The other reason I chose a bear, though, once I got down to plotting and figuring things out, was because, like I said earlier, everyone's had a teddy bear.
Yes.
There is a universal appeal to them.
You do something very unique in Threadbare that I haven't seen done well in a long time, which is you use the omniscient viewpoint, or as some people call it, the cinematic viewpoint.
That was a bit of an experiment. I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but the readers seemed to love it, and so I kept going with it. That was actually a callback to some of the earlier children's books, some of the turn of the century children's books that have survived. Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, the Oz books, because if you look back there, they did the same thing.
That's definitely something that I think kind of works for like folklore and myth lore for younger readers, but Threadbare is not really a young adult book.
I've described it as Game of Thrones meets Toy Story minus all the boobs.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah,
it's totally true.
And that was a tough call, really. The violence in it generally isn't any worse than you'd see in the Harry Potter movies, but there is swearing. And I was on the fence back and forth on whether or not to take that out for the printed version. And at the end of the day, I decided no. The story goes into a couple dark places here and there. Again, nothing that you wouldn't see in Hogwarts, but I don't want somebody reading it to their 6-year-old and accidentally dropping a few F-bombs. So in the end, I decided to leave the swearing in there.
Certainly Whoopi didn't care.
No. Though she did warn people twice, this isn't a book for kids. So, and I'm glad she did. Probably saved herself a couple lawsuits there.
Another unique thing about Threadbare, which I haven't seen in other books in the genre, is that it's a very unique take on the golems, the use of golems, especially the use of the golem spell. Why did you decide to go with golems?
For game terms, it doesn't help that golems are tough as balls, you know. He was pretty sure to survive anything I threw at him in the early stages, because I didn't know what I was going to throw at him. I was literally writing a chapter a day.
It definitely is a unique take also on crafting. I mean, it's essentially kind of at its core a crafting story.
It is a crafting story, but it's one that doesn't always go into the hows or details or components required. There is a loose system there that I'm refining for the role-playing game, but a lot of it is left to the player's imagination. I don't have to describe every thread or stitch, which actually worked out for the better.
Did you just say for the role-playing game? Are you making a Threadbare role-playing game?
Yes.
What?
Sean, I spent how much of my life designing role-playing games? And now I got a book that's selling great.
This is news.
On a role-playing game?
So
you think I wouldn't think of this, Sean? This is the thing, man. This is happening.
I know. So tell me what you can about that.
Well, I'm having to adjust as I go. It's taking a very long time. There are basically 28 Tier 1 jobs in the Threadbare universe itself, the world of Generica. And so that's taking a while because each job has about 15 skills in the first 25 levels or so. And writing up all those skills, man, it's taken a while. But it's actually working out. It's going to need testing. I'm hoping to be done with the alpha version around July or August. Well, around August at this point.
Really?
Yeah,
that's right around the corner, man.
Yeah, I'm going to send it out to my mailing list. Say, here you go, guys. Have fun. Give me feedback.
Oh, I have to make sure I'm on the mailing list.
And the basic plan is to get the base book out there on the mailing list in very rough form, of course. There's no real art. You know, editing is... There's enough to go by, though. There's enough to play, and that's the thing. And once that's done, I think future supplements will be on Patreon or whatever I end up working with, because I won't lie, this is taking a very long time.
So, you know, you mentioned systems in Threadbare, and did you have any? You play a lot of games and a lot of video games. Did you have any influences in constructing your systems in Threadbare? Yeah,
a couple of small ones, but two very large ones. Skyrim, for the way that skills leveled and you got better at things as you did them. That was a big influence there. And Final Fantasy for the job system. I'm talking Final Fantasy V, back when the days before it was all cutscenes and with a little bit of gameplay in between, where you could switch jobs around and get access to skills that way.
Speaking of skills, you said one of your favorite abilities is work it, baby.
Oh, yeah. That comes from the model job. Which
the model job.
Because look at me. This awesome is work. But yeah, work it, baby is a buff that basically increases the effectiveness of all your worn or equipped items. The trick is to gain experience for it, you have to impress people with the items in question.
That is hilarious, dude.
Yeah, so if your clothes are mismatched, you're not going to level that skill. But if you look awesome,
Work It Baby is just classic, and it's an instant classic. But also, I found an instant classic were your Raggedy Men. Where did that come from?
So you've got a solitary old golem maker who lives in the hills. What's he going to use to keep those kids off his lawn? You're going to want something spooky but slow moving so it doesn't actually rip people to shreds. So basically he animated scarecrows. made them look as creepy as they could with sticks poking out and leaves everywhere and sacks over their heads, and told them, go walk around the perimeter and beat up anything that's bigger than a cat.
Another thing that you said, which surprised me, quite frankly, is that if you had a time machine, you wouldn't use it.
You're darn right I wouldn't.
Why not?
Well, the reality we know is based upon everything that's happened before, right? So many variables out there combined to make things happen the way they did. There's absolutely no way to control every variable if you went back in time and tried to change things. There's no way to... And that's even before, you get into what exactly do paradoxes do? Am I going to vanish here? Is Jet Li going to show up with 20 dozen clones of him and kick my ass? There's a reason the Doctor is a super genius alien. And even he knows better than to change certain things in the past.
I don't know, man. I would have to use the time machine. I could not have that power and not use it. I mean, I guess I'm not going to be as altruistic as you. I'm using that sucker. I don't care.
That's fine. Just, slip me a couple hundo thousands when you get back here. Well, I'll be okay with it.
There you go. We'll build a life-size Threadbare.
Okay.
There we go. Monument to Threadbare. I'm promising that when I get my time machine.
Works for me.
Let's get to the section I like to call
Battle Who Wins.
So I'm going to give you a couple scenarios, a couple options, and
you decide.
So the first one, of course, what kind of host would I be if I did not give you a bear scenario choice? So battle who wins? Pooh Bear versus Yogi Bear.
I'd have to give that one to Pooh. Not because of violence, not because of any physical advantages. Yogi's got those, but because Pooh has a posse. And
Pooh has a posse.
Some of them wouldn't hesitate to beat Yogi down if it came down to it. All right. Eeyore would tank, Kanga is a mom. Kanga has dealt with both Rue and Tigger simultaneously. She can handle Yogi. True. Or she could just glare at him and Yogi would apologize and slink away and feel bad for a few days.
True.
So yeah, Pooh's got it.
Yeah, I have to go with you on that one, man. Pooh's got my vote too. Definitely the best bear going. All right, here we go. So one of my personal favorites, because I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. So
Battle of the RRs. George or Tolkien?
Well, Tolkien's actually been to war, so my money's probably on Tolkien. But if you're looking for a competition between pros, both of them are long and rambling. But Tolkien actually finished his flagship series.
Oh, and you're right. You said the epic rap battle of history on YouTube, which pitted Tolkien against Martin. Yeah, I love that. Is one of my favorite videos, rap battles videos, and definitely that shows that Tolkien wins hands down. Although Martin got in some really good slings there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. It was a pretty even match. I was happy.
One of my all-time favorites questions is
Battle who wins? Dwarves versus Vikings.
Dwarves.
Why? Everybody goes with dwarves. Nobody likes Vikings. Why not the love, man?
Superior craftsmanship, for one thing. Less target area. And when you're dealing with axes, that's a very big concern. The fact that they usually shape the terrain to their advantage, or know better than to gauge in terrain that they're not. And then the fact that artillery is really good at sinking boats.
True. That is true. I never thought of that.
On the open seas, Vikings got a shot. On land, no.
Well, hell, you'd be hard-pressed to get a dwarf on a boat anyway.
So yeah, they wouldn't be fighting Vikings on open seas. There you go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Vikings fan, but
I'm sorry.
Well, I can't go against dwarves because I love dwarves too.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Here we go.
Battle of the Helmets. You got Vader and you got the Stormtrooper. Who has the better helmet?
Vader's actually lets him have peripheral vision, so I'd have to go with his.
God, it's like I can't win on that one. We talked about Halloween and costumes before, and I used to go as a Stormtrooper. I love that thing.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, it does look badass, and they've got enough variants, so there's something to suit everyone. But it's like the law of conservation of ninjas, right? If there's only one, it's way more effective than 100. So.
Well, you got me there. I mean, he is the epitome of star evil. Mm-hmm. So, and it is a badass helmet. I got to admit, I just am a fan of the Trooper helmet, but I just keep getting shot down left and right. But I'm with you. Well, Andrew, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. And I love the books. Go check them out. Threadbare 1, 2, and 3 are already out. I mean, what are you waiting for? Those things they kick ass. Go check them out. Thanks for being here, dude. I really appreciate it. My pleasure, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching Game Reads. Check out our other great interviews on YouTube and GameReads.net. Connect and chat with other fans on our Game Reads Facebook page and YouTube channel, and support us on Patreon.com. Please subscribe now to our YouTube channel or iTunes podcast and never miss an episode. Cheers to legendary gear.